Hey everybody, it's Joe Vizio here. Whew, man, glad that shit's over, huh? I hope everybody's holiday was good. I hope that you found some peace for yourself and just found some way to enjoy it. And if this did turn out to be kind of a bad, lonely kind of holiday, and believe me, I've been there. As much sometimes, we don't want people just blowing that positive smoke up our asses. I have to tell you that, you got 363 more days to find you and find what works for you. And believe me, I know how that sounds. And the only reason that I'm saying it like that is because I was there. That whole time that I was in Kentucky and in Tennessee, it kind of turned out that I was just involved in a relationship that was very, very, very soaking wet with codependency. Most of the time I felt like just that, I don't know, just kind of like that outsider that was just there. And just, I guess, by my nature of how I am over the holidays, I tried to take care of everybody else. Tried to take care of my girlfriend's kids and my girlfriend, and as much as I did that, the sentiment was kind of returned to me that I was just kind of there, That was, that whole situation was kind of an ugly one. And I definitely have a pretty challenging couple videos ahead of me to make, because I want to kind of tell that whole story. I want to tell the story about when I was working for my father as a contractor, and part of how I ended up in Tennessee and Kentucky, and events that led up to that, and the aftermath of that whole fiasco. And I talk about owning it, owning what happened to you, owning what people did to you, not take fault for it, not take fault for what they did to you, but own it as a part of your story. But, some of us may have other things that we were responsible for or partly responsible for, that we have to own up to our mistakes. And I spoke of this once before, talking about, how sometimes through the course of our lives, we may have ended up hurting people. And I think, in part by our very nature, I don't think that we really intended to hurt anybody. I think that a lot of times that if people were hurt, they were just collateral damage with the war that we were having on ourselves, the war that we were having with ourselves. But still the same. I'm the type of person that You know, I can recognize my shortcomings and my faults. And I don't think I'm too shy about explaining them on here. And yeah, Pop, that's right. I ain't taking any of the responsibility for the shit that you did. You're responsible for that. You need to own that shit. So, you know, I've attempted to try and, you know, lay down some videos about that stuff, but one of them I ended up getting so triggered on that it really, you know, wasn't very flattering. Was kind of a rough one. I definitely was taken back into that moment, and the anger was very much alive and well. So we'll work on that, huh? Try and come at it with a cool head. So everybody, you know, I appreciate all the Christmas greetings and everything. I mean, you guys are awesome, and I only hope that I can be just as awesome for you. And you know, and I've seen that, you know, there was quite a few new people popping around and hitting the comments, and I sure do appreciate that. And I'm sorry I haven't really had chances to respond. It's been a rough few days, you know. You know, me and my wife have been working so much all the way up until Christmas, and then we had to take care of a lot of the things around our house that we were neglecting, because, you know, everybody was coming to our house for Christmas dinner. So Christmas Day was kind of a blur. And then the day after Christmas, you know, all the stuff that I didn't get to take care of as far as work went before, I had to take care of after. So yesterday, both me and my wife went out and worked together. And, you know, it took us about 10 hours, the two of us. So that was 20 man hours worth of labor. And, you know, of course, when we come home, we actually have a little bit of a mess to clean up from Christmas Day. You know, we didn't put our tables away and stuff like that. Floor was in bad need of a good sweeping. You know how it is, man. We're human. So, you know, I'm not neglecting anybody. As a matter of fact, my oldest daughter, I mean, I think I got to talk to her for a total of 10 minutes. And that's one of the things I'm going to do while I'm at work tonight, is just be able to kind of dedicate some time to just sit and talk to her and see how things went out in Montana. It was really her first Christmas away from both of her parents. So that's that. But, you know, there's kind of a question, and it's kind of popped up before. And even, you know, Ollie's kind of, you know, asked me the same question. Is, you know, about why my mother is still in my life. And, you know, I ask myself that same question sometimes. Especially when my mother's having one of her special moments. And, you know, they're still... My mother still has her useful points. My mother is You know, I would say a self-aware borderline, but she's not really self-aware. She's kind of still in denial. She has her moments where she just likes to play the victim and, oh, why is everybody always picking on me? But then again, she has those moments where she can see the aftermath of what she has caused. I can handle my mother. Now I can. It took me quite a while. I think this past year and a few months that I've been doing these videos, that's really a big key as to why I can handle my mother now. We talk about the guilt that we don't feel, the guilt over the guilt that we don't feel, and I don't necessarily feel guilty, but I feel sorry. I feel sorry for my mother sometimes. And true to getting back to the roots of the first videos that I've done about my mother was abused herself. My mother had a really rough childhood. One of the biggest reasons that my mother married my father was that was her ticket out of her parents' house. My mother's really suffered from depression her whole life. And I'm not making excuses for what she's done. For the stuff that my mother's done and the stuff that my mother still does, she's an asshole. But I'm not going to let that subtract from the person who I am. I'm an empathetic person. I like having empathy. I like being a person with feelings. I like being a person that can understand, that can think of things with a cool head when I think about it. I like who I am. I like who I am better than I did a couple years ago. It's because I understand more about what happened. I understand that what happened was not my fault. And even though I can take my own responsibilities in events that have led me down certain paths, the foundation is not my fault. I'm not the one that put together a crooked and cracked foundation. That responsibility goes to my parents. But I understand a lot more about why they did the things that they did. And I understand better how to deal with it. And I'm by no means recovered. I still have a long ways to go. So again, I'll reiterate that I am not ready to look into that rear view. Except for when I look in this one right here at that dude that's like on my ass. And I ain't going any faster, buddy. So I'm definitely not ready to look in that rear view of life. I've just come a long way. And my mother. You know, when I look at my mother now, and there's still a lot of things that get on my nerves about her. A lot of things that I can see that when she does it, I just want to grab a mirror and hold it right up to her face and tell her, you see, this is the shit that I'm talking about. And sometimes I do. But what I've noticed, excuse me, sugary energy drink. Good for the caffeine though, I guess. Because I don't feel like doing this shit today. When I look at my mother now, and from what I've seen over the past year or so, is a woman that is very, very, very rapidly declining in her health. This time last year, you know, my mother was still in poor health. But she was moving around a little more, and it's just bad what I seen this year. And I really kind of took a step back to really observe, because and let me start. You know, having my mother come to my house for the holiday, and you know, we brought her over to stay the night. She's still in her own apartment, which, you know, first thing, and I go over to her apartment, it stinks. It's kind of not quite deplorable conditions, but it's getting close. Because she's really not doing anything, and then I see that, and I start kind of getting that little bit of trigger. You know, I'm just kind of like, Ma, you gotta do. But for this time, you know, as I see that, and you know, and it stinks. And she knows that I know it stinks. And she's telling me in her best, severely out of breath voice, going, I forgot to take my trash out. And that trigger in me is telling me, Mom, no, you didn't forget to take out the trash. You were just too lazy to take it out. But then I stop. And I see that person that I'm supposed to be peeking out. That person that, from all of my defenses that I've put up in order to prevent things like narcissistic abuse happening to myself, and I just step back and I see that empathetic person, and I realize it's not so much anymore that my mother's lazy. It's just that I'm watching my mother die. She is well within the process of dying. Brings me kind of a sad feeling to say that. heck? I hate the shit that she did. I hate what it has done to me. I hate the shit that both her and my father did. I spent a long time kicking my own ass over it. As hard as my parents were on me, they couldn't hold a candle to how hard that made me on myself. And I hate it. But the empathetic person comes out, and I see my mother in the process of dying. She can't catch her breath. She can't take more than 20 steps without being out of breath, without having to use her inhaler. And I hear her breathing heavy, and that defensive, hate-filled voice comes through my head and tells me she's faking, she's doing it to get attention. And the reality of it is that empathetic voice that tells me, shut up, she's dying. I keep my mother around because I am going to see this through. Because for some reason, I feel like I owe it to myself. I owe it to myself to try and show myself that I am a good person. My mother and my father are worlds apart from each other. They both kind of suffer some of the same symptoms. Well, maybe in their time they didn't suffer. They made those around them suffer. But although they have a lot of the same symptoms in common, they were very, very different people who did things for very, very different reasons. So as I can't wait to piss on the grave of my father, it's a little different with my mother. And again, I hate the things that she did. I hate the fact that I was always chosen last. I hate the fact that I always got the shit end of the stick. I hate it that I was turned out with really no preparation for life whatsoever. I hate the fact that my mother abandoned me. But as we get to the meat of why I am personally taking my journey towards healing, I'm not doing this to be cynical. I'm not doing this to just spread ill will about anybody, to spread bad stories about anybody. I am doing this Because at the bottom, when I'm finished, I want to become a better person. That's all. I think that when my mother does pass, I think that it's going to hit me like a ton of bricks. And I can give you many different excuses and reasons why that might make sense from despite what I have been through with her, what I'm still going through with her. But I think I just know in my heart of hearts, for myself and only myself, that I need to do what I feel is right within my own heart. I have to. I absolutely have to. For me, for myself. That might sound selfish, but it's really not. It is taking self back. So, that's why I keep my mother around. That's why she's still here. That's why I've not gone no contact with her. I am in many ways low contact. Me and my mom don't have those porch sitting sessions anymore. All I've ever really done is just kind of salvage what I could. Digging through the pieces. Seeing what still works. I hope all this makes sense to everybody. I'm not ready to forgive. I'm working on it. And to me, I firmly believe that there is no sense in forgiving somebody that isn't going to stop the behavior that they needed forgiveness for. And my mother still hasn't really stopped that behavior. She's still got her things. She still has not sincerely came to me and said, you know what? I realized that I fucked up, that I went about this wrong. And that I respect what you're doing. That's all I want. That's all I want. So, I feel as though we're in a race against the clock now. And although we probably have a pretty good idea how that race is going to end, I still feel within myself that this is a necessary race for me to run. And again, I know the amount of disappointment that's going to be at that finish line. But sometimes you got to do what you feel like you got to do to feel better. Even if you end up feeling a little worse at the end. Sometimes if you can go through and And you can really look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? I think I've done everything that I can do. I think that's something that we can live with. That's something that I can live with. And then I don't care who's got to say anything about that. I think I've done my best. And you know what? To everybody out there, I hope that at some point you all are going to get to that point. That you will also get to that point. It's not forgiveness. It's acceptance and ownership. And again, not ownership as in you taking responsibility for what somebody else has done to you, but just owning it and embracing it as your own story. That's all. So guys, thank you very much for listening. And I hope we all find what we're looking for.